a content of the bronze or the gold. So basically, that is very initial understanding of the excavation or unearthed artifact. So basically, for this is the very first stop. So think about that. For here is the first stop to look at the artifacts. So we talk about the just unearthed artifact. Some people said it's maybe the bronzeware, something just like the wooden products or the golden ones. Actually, we use this room to give us a very first understanding about the look and maybe the potential material of that artifact. So this is the room right now. I believe people right now in the lunch break. So you can see this is the ultra spectrum detectors, and I can tell you this is actually the very first time we use this kind of equipment to test the unearthed artifacts. And once again, this is the hyperspectral equipment. So this is the very first time we use this kind of the precise equipment for the artifact, for the archaeological research. So basically, by using this kind of cutting-edge technology, we first establish a database for the unearthed artifact. And also we look at this one. This to tell us the color. So we talk about that the color remitters. So this basically tell us the basic data of the color of that. For example, we have the artifact from pit number 3. So they will also first arrive to here for the colorimeter. Because we know that the artifact actually unearthed embedded underground for quite a long time. So we need to first use these colorimeters to tell the original color of that artifact. So this is the first stop. So this is the first room, and also have the other 2 rooms. So this is a room for the organic material. So talk about the organic artifact, and this should be restored here. So we talk about that a low temperature with a high moisture level, so it's good to protect the cultural relics. So as we got the authority, we got allowed to open the door here. So this is a really low temperature. This is a fridge. So we talk about because they are the organic nature, so they should actually restored in this kind of box. So the K4, K8, basically that's the R categorize it, or the different categories, so we know exactly which category the unearthed artifact belong to. So you look at the envoy, actually also put it in the different boxes. So to keep the moisture and also keep the temperature. So of course this is for temporary purpose, because for their next leg it takes some time to transfer them from here to their next stop. So they will stop here. So they will store here. So we talk about the very beginning work like the cleaning or the analyzing work actually is all stop here. So this is the second room, and what about the third room? So we talk about the goldware and the bronzeware will be all monitored here, and also for the very emergency repairing work also is undergoing here. So this is the room for inorganic material. So we can see the staff right now is here very busy, not only need to monitoring, analyzing the substance, the inorganic substance of the goldware, and also we'll look at this. People need to also work on the reports so people can know the information. So you can see there are a lot of different kinds of the equipment. There are a lot of things actually quite draw our attention and looking very interesting. So we talk about the organic and inorganic substance are separated in different rooms for repairing and storing. So we talk about archaeological work actually is very malicious. Lead to the detail required work. So this one actually kind of zoom in for 5,000 times. And provide quite clear imaging, and also the 3D image technique also available here. So we talk about a pattern on the surface of the artifact. Actually, we can use this equipment for a testing and also providing the clear image. So we two are good bros, actually with just one person, with one team. So we talk about the wide mouth zun, or the wide mouth vessel. Look at this is kind of the simulation model we made. And also we make a clothes, so the cynical rubber clothes to protect. And also this is the 3D samples, so we use 3D printing actually to help us to protect the artifacts, and also made some the small models. So you look at the So you look at it actually, it's 1/5 of the original size. So this is kind of a narrowed sample, and this is another one. So look at actually we use a 3D to print the cynical rubber of the clothes to protect the artifacts, and we also use a sampling and modeling tools to make smaller ones. So you look at the 3D printing, actually can print the larger size one or the smaller size one. So depends on your requirement and the needs. So first of all, of course, we need to collect all the details, information, and data 360 degrees. And also later on, the 3D printers actually can provide exactly the same model of the artifacts. So we talk about the cultural relic, repairing, restoration, and discovery actually all rely on the help of this kind of cutting-edge technology. So we talk about we are just the one small part of the whole chain, the whole team. And also we shared you that the 3D printing technology, and also we invite people always to visit the museum to look at the true one. So we talk about that, the original look and feel. I believe that something can be restored in the museum. And also we talk about the byproducts. We talk about maybe the cultural products could be available, could be an idea. So think about it. Maybe that later on we could produce some products based on the artifact we found here, this time in Sanxingdui. We talk about actually this is not the final destination. This is just a stop along the whole journey. So we think about how we can better provide close to the artifacts. Then we think about the silicon rubber actually could be a good choice. So we actually give that additional coat to these relics. So we also work with the third party. So basically, this is something just a idea. Actually, we had a plan at a very early time, and finally we realize it. So we think about this is a quite good protective cloth by using that silicone gel. So for this time cooperation, we talk about the cultural relic restoration and the cultural excavation work. I believe we always belong to one family because we work so close hand in hand with each other. So we talk about that. We conduct our work, although we're from different department or different function, but actually we work together in the same pace. I believe we also set a quite a good example, and believe that can roll out our practice later on to other projects. We talk about the excavation or archaeological work is undergoing at the same time with the unearthed artifact restoration. I'd also would like to bring the whole capability to another high level, and this rely on the talents from the different departments, different disciplines.
3星半月数千载，重启发掘再探秘。
Sanxingdui has
欢迎收
existed
看
for
央视
thousands
新
of
闻频
years
道直
and
播
now
特别
it's
节目《
unveiling
三星堆
its
新发
true
现》。
look to
35
the
年
world.
前，
Welcome
3星
to
堆
our
进行
program.
大规模发掘，造成
35 years ago, the Sanxingdui was first discovered, which astonished the whole world. But there's a lot of mysteries left unattended to. And then we discovered 6 additional pits. Will they help us unveil the secrets of the Sanxingdui? The new 6 pits are different in sizes and shapes, but they have been constantly astonishing the whole world. Now let's take a look at pit number 3. And this is the pit that has produced the most artifacts, including bronze utensils and jade tablets. And one of the pieces is a sculpture with a dragon with very thorny teeth. We have another utensil which has 5 supporters, and on top of these supporters we have a bronze figure. Going forward, our archaeologists will figure out what that is and maybe reach some conclusions. And today, page number 3 got us a very large bronze string, and the archaeologists they have worked out a silicon gel, and beneath this bronze string there is something else. And what is that? We're going to unveil the answer in a few minutes. And now let's move on to page number 4. You have heard a lot about page number 4, and yesterday we found out some wrinkled golden strips. According to archaeologists, they have to clean up the earth and then extract that golden strip from the pit. We already knew that there are 37 elephant tusks in pit number 4, and 2 days ago one very giant ivory was taken out from the pit, and the other remaining ivory they are covered and they will be extracted on a later date. Another jade tablet was also extracted from pit number 4. And now let's move on to pit number 5. This is the smallest one, but it's shining with golden files. And 2 days ago, one golden file was extracted and it was scanned using super hyperspectral scanners. And in pit number 5, there are a lot of golden files. And when discovered, they were in very delicate order. And there are round holes in the center of the gold file, and according to experts, they are very likely ornaments on a dress or on a clothing. And yesterday we also identified a 30 centimeter long golden sculpture of a bird. We also found a golden ornament in the shape of a fish. And our archaeologists they are currently restoring and repairing this piece, and we also found a lot of patterns on a fish sculpture. A golden facial mask was also discovered, and the archaeologists they are repairing and recovering the missing part. In P number 6, a wooden box was discovered, and its length is equivalent to the width of the P number 6. Inside the wooden box, we found a very thin and very long wood stick. And what that is, we're going to find the answer in a few minutes. And yesterday we transferred the earth samples to the laboratory, and we haven't found any elements of fibromes. Now let's move on to P number 6. On the left is P number 6, and on the right is P number 7. And you can see that part of those pits are overlapping each other according to archaeologists. So this is a relationship of breakthrough. Right now, P number 7 is still under the operational work of earth digging, and in P number 8, which is the largest of all the pits, we have already found some of the bronzeware. According to metallic scanners and radar scans, we believe there are a lot of metals buried in pit number 8. So today we are going to focus on pit number 8. And in pit number 8, we have found some burned earth and also construction beams used in buildings, and another stone dagger was also identified, and we can expect a lot of surprises from page 8. So when were those artifacts created according to a C14 analysis? Pin number 7 had a history of 3,000 to 3,200 years, so it was in a medium period of Shang Dynasty. We have already collected 500 pieces of artifacts. So what is the latest progress there? Now let's get connected with Zhao Jing, who is on site in Sanxingdui Relic site. So Zhao Jing, can you tell us the latest? Thank you very much. We are now at the Sanxingdui Relic Center. Let me bring you the latest. You can see behind me the archaeologists are busy excavating those relics and artifacts. How old is pit number 8? The Sichuan Cultural Relic Research Institution worked with a counterpart in Beijing, and they used C14 scanning, and they believe that pit number 8 is of the age of 3,000 to 3,200 years, and it was roughly in a medium period of Shang Dynasty. As for the other pits, the archaeologists are still working on that. And we have excavated the most goldware from pit number 5. And from that pit, we extracted a golden facial mask and also a golden sculpture of bird. And also in this pit, you can see a lot of shining golden files. Right now, the archaeologists have stopped excavating those golden files because they believe there is some connection between these golden files with those scattered and sporadic jade pieces. Do they belong to one bigger piece of artifacts? Well, we will have to wait till we can have an answer. And also pit number 4 also saw some golden files. Originally, yesterday, we had the plan to extract a long golden strip, but after a close observation, they found out that one pottery piece was pressed beneath this golden strip. So what is this golden strip? Is there any secret behind this? So we're still holding our breaths, and we believe that there's a lot of mysteries in that, because in 1986, in pit number 1, we excavated a golden wind that is 40 somewhat centimeters long, and so in pin number 4, we are unveiling more and more bronzeware. 2 days ago, in pin number 3, a very large bronze string was excavated. You can see that beneath this bronze utensil, there is some debris of bronzeware, and there are also shells. And on top of pin number 4, there are more than 100 elephant tusks. So the task next step is to extract those ivory. And I believe that you know that pit number 8 is the largest of all the pits. Right now we have reached the landfill earth layer, and we believe that if we go further down by 30 centimeters, we can reach the layer of artifacts, and we expect to find a lot of metallic objects. As for how many and how important those metallic artifacts are, we are still waiting to see. In pin number 6, we have discovered a very mysterious wooden box. What is the wooden box for? Our scientists have analyzed the soil samples, and we haven't found any sign of fibroins, which means that the wooden box was not a container for silk or woven silk products. But we are continuing with the analysis to see whether the wooden box is used as the container to hold wine or meat. All the artifacts have been numbered. The archive, I believe that we can expect more results going forward. I will keep you updated. Thank you very much, Zhao Jing, for giving us the latest. Pit 8 is the largest of the 6 pits, and it's different from the other pits in that we haven't found any elephant tusk in pit number 8. Yesterday in pit 5, we found a lot of golden fells. So what are the latest plan that we have? And yesterday we identified a golden strip. So what is this golden strip? With all these questions, now let's get connected to Guangquan, who is working from the studio in Sanxingdui. Welcome back. Nice to see you again at the Deyuan Cultural Relic Center at Sanxingdui, and we are at the studio of Sanxingdui here. Since the 1980s, we have identified a lot of the signs and remains of city walls in east, south, and the west. And these are the city walls of the Sanxingdui and also the Moon Bay. And in recent years, we discovered the city wall in the north and also in some other areas. For thousands of years after corrosion from river, and there's no way that we can connect together all those sections. But with archaeological study, we can still try to understand the relationships between these different wall sections. So this is a very astonishing and mind-blowing relic site. It's gigantic. You can see there are many different functional zones, and you can visualize how developed the Sanxingdui civilization or the ancient Shu kingdom was. So in today's program, we are going to bring you on site to understand the latest discoveries. And today we have with us Director of the Chinese Academy of Archaeology, researcher Wang Wei, and we also have with us Dr. Cai Ning from the Peking University, who is leading one of the archaeological teams.
So Mr. Wang, actually kind of focusing on the latest progress we got here, and so far anything that's thrilling us. So first of all, that's from the pit number 3. That was a height of 1.15 meters. That's the wide mouth, the vessel, and we also found that's the biggest one and the largest one in size. And also we talk about that mask from pit number 5, and also the bird-shaped the golden foil. And also yesterday in our live streaming, we also saw that golden belt. Before we saw maybe a quite short one, but right now, very surprisingly, it's at least 30 centimeters long. I believe that could be a potential gold wand. And also today, a lot of secrets to be unveiled in pit number 8. So can you us any spoilers for pit number 8? In the recent days, actually, we had cleaned the AP number 8, and we could see that a lot of things actually quite unveiled to us. I believe more to be expected. So thank you very much. As Mr. Wang said, in today's live streaming, there will be a lot of a secret unfolded in front of us. We talk about gold wand-like belt. So because like on top of that belt also covered by the ceramics and also ivory, so we will see whether we can clean the obstacles and get that entire piece in front of us. So let's wait and see what kind of surprise we could have today. So right now you are watching, this is the carbon, and inside the carbon actually there are the different small carbons inside. So you could see that the different pits, and there are a lot of secrets to be found out. And also with that splendid the culture and civilization, so we would like to unveil a curtain. So right now let's give a close shot. That's pit number 8. So I invite Mr. Cai. I believe that for pit number 8, that should be the largest one, right? Among the ladies, I found 4 pits. So for pit number 8, I could say that this is the largest one. and with the 5.1 meters long, the 3.8 meters wide, and around 19 square meters for the total area. So basically 5 times of the pit number 5. We started our work at December 15th last year until March 18th this year. We finished the portion of the earth cleaning work, and also we talk about that right now. We're looking at the layer of objects or the layer of ashes. You look at this is the plate. We found 3 stone plates. You look at it quite flat and on the top. So what's the circle? And you make it the original mark actually. We don't know whether the bottom side is also flat because we haven't seen the other side of the stone flat. Maybe that could be a certain floor of the cement or back to the Han Dynasty. That could be the floor back then. But that's a really early date. But I believe this is still the original look. We didn't make anything on top of that. So could it be the connecting piece? In the recent live streamings, we talk about the layers of ashes. So we talk about the layers of ashes this time in our excavation work. It's quite interesting. Actually, look at this is a pit number 8. It's quite the red clay. It's showing that the dark brown color. So that's including bits of carbon bones and red clay. And also we look at that's different small pieces. So we talk about people back then, they for the sacrificial rituals, and they burnt that ashes, and also they pour that ashes into this pit. So basically, they not burned ashes inside the pit. Actually, they poured that ashes into the pit after the sacrificial activities. Why we need to study these ashes? So we need to first understand where these ashes burned, either inside the pit or outside the pit. So we talk about in the other places that maybe that after that the sacrifice, they pour this into the pit. If they burned the ashes inside the pit, that may be the different activities. So we talk about that in the middle actually found a lot of quite a dark color, and also found that bits of the bones and the carbons and the red clay. So far we still find very small pieces of brownware and jade artifacts. And look at this one. This is once again, this is a quite large size of stone dagger. So far we had 9 in total. The daggers, and this is the biggest one. So it's a 40 centimeters long and 15 centimeters wide. I believe this is not really for production purpose, right? I believe there's something from the Xia or Shang Dynasty, not really with specific purpose. But you look at actually, we had a lot of this kind of similar findings. And also look at a little piece of jade. I believe this in that round circle. I believe it's in the bowl shape. It's more for the decorating purpose. So from the Xia Dynasty, and we use that the ivory artifacts and also the daggers to make the large or the ground the sacrifice, and also that's carried forward the same ritual activities. So that is why we found this kind of in a Sanxingdui and also Archaeological. So this ivory artifact. So we look at the dagger and also the ivory artifacts actually share the commonality, which also talk about that should we share some common points with the central plain. And actually not only in China, actually in Vietnam, we also find this kind of the dagger. So we talk about this kind of a weapon, and we talk about the central bridge of the Yangtze River. We found a similar dagger axe, and the largest one so far we got is 1 meter long. And we could tell that this is something actually influenced by the local culture, and I believe that Sanxingdui could be a one-stop, but actually the whole journey, the whole route actually is from the central plain to the other places such as Vietnam. So actually, you could see that from the Sichuan to Yunnan to Myanmar, that could be a route that for trade. So we could see that every artifact actually from different areas we got the same finding. That could be in a way demonstrating the cultural exchange. So this is a kind of the detector. This is the X-ray, the spectrum testing. So basically, this tells us the a material, the a composition inside. So we look at this. Originally, we found that in the Shanxi, and right now we got the jade one, but actually the majority actually made of bronze. So this is what I got in before, but still we didn't find the similar one. So this is a jade disc. So we believe some is a jade disc, some is the bronze disc with edges. So this is also going forward. We need to know exactly why we have this large number of the bronze disc with edges. I believe on top that should be also a piece of pottery. So the right actually we talk about the red clay, the bits of red clay. So basically, that's the soil burned. So that could be several reasons. So first, that's to the purpose to make this pit. So they burnt that earth, and also for the somewhere in the southern part of China, they also like to burn that soil. And this we know is not for cooking purpose. So we may think about that for the buildings or the architecture. And they burnt that soil. So we could see that the red clay bits. So still, we talk about that the whole piece actually that's the layer of ashes. We're also looking for the location of the temple for the sacrificial activities, because this should be a grand ceremony, and they poured that ashes into this pit. So we would like to locate on top of our findings to find that location of the temples. And this is also the stone plates, and this is maybe also the wooden sticks. So is it possible that these bits actually buried the small-sized temples or the ruins? So the whole temple ruins actually buried here in this pit. That could be possible. I believe this is something very surprising, something new findings to us, because we have kept searching the temples. We know this actually sacrificial areas, but we're looking for exactly the venue to hold all these activities. We talk about ivory. So far, we haven't found any clear signal of ivory from pit number 7 and 8. Of course, we are now finishing all the cleaning work. But so far, it's no appearance of that ivory. But for pit number 1, 2, 3, actually got a lot of ivory. But for pit number 5, that's the finding of the gold mask, but not a lot of ivory. So same for pit 6, 7, and 8. It's quite different from what we got from pit 1 to 3. So maybe they have a different purpose for burying different things in different pits. And this is also the scattered pieces of bronzeware. And we also believe that may be a brown disc or the bell. So that's the smashed. So that's actually not really in its original shape. So still that's the bronze bells. So for a little, you could like from the pictures a larger size, and we later on become the different shape. So we talk about that could be hanging on the ceiling of the building. So we talk about maybe a lot of excavated items related to the architecture area, so the buildings. So maybe that could be sort of decorating purpose to make your house looking good. So we talk about that the materials for buildings. We need to look more to see whether we can find more materials to build up a house, because we talk about that the dragger actually we found a lot on the surface. I believe that's more for the artifactual activities that are highly related to the ritual activities. So we talk about that these large number of daggers can tell us these stories. Right now we could see that cleaning a piece of bronzeware. Right now we could see that the curtain covered the pit number 8 right now started to unveiled. So we are looking forward for more results coming soon. So let's also turn to pit number 4. So that's the a pit we've got a large piece of the golden belt. So we don't know why now the pottery covered that the belt already cleaned up. Let's see what they are doing. Maybe they are doing that lifting work to see whether they could lift that pottery cover the belt. Still, this one we're still working on the cleaning the obstacles cover that belt, golden belt, or the golden stripe. So still, this is a belt shape, a golden foil. So we need to really first to let it loosen a little bit so it's easier for us to take out the whole piece. And also we should make sure that at the same time we not really damage the other artifacts covered under that the golden foil. So need to make sure you cannot actually bother your neighbors either on top of yourself or the beneath. So we need to really be careful about the residuals surrounding the golden foil, and also we look at maybe something under it. We could see that because this should be in certain container. So right now we don't have that container with the soil, the earth. We could see that is the liquid. So this is a transparent plastic. We haven't seen this before. It's a little bit wider. It's a specific a soil sample collector.
This is just like a knife that the surgeons use in operations. So we're gonna extract the pottery plate. That will enable us to see how long the strip is. So how difficult is that? Well, seen from here, I believe it will take a very long time because it's very delicate and meticulous work. He has used this very small wooden shovel, and we look forward to see the overall shape of this golden foil so that we can see a lot of complete pieces. So, Dr. Wang, pottery is one very important part of the life of ancient people. Well, 13,000 years ago, there were pottery used in China's north and south, and there were a lot of excavations in this perspective. And in Zhejiang's Gujiang city, we excavated pottery pieces of more than 10,000 years old. So why do we have pottery? Our understanding is that at the Old Stone Age, people mainly relied on hunting, and people were eating a lot of barbacoes in simple terms. So the cooking pots were also very simple, and gradually human beings started to take in more plants. And that means that we need to have some containers that are relatively larger so that we can hold nuts, and sometimes we need to boil them, and that is how pottery came into being. In China, in Central Asia, those are the places where pottery was first excavated. Without pottery, for example, in Western Asia, what they did is to burn and increase the temperature of a stone, and then they would just simply bake food instead of boiling food. But in China, it was quite different, and gradually pottery was evolved into Chinaware. So this evolution is still going on. So in China, we tend to put together the word pottery and China, but it's actually two different things. You're right, the earliest pottery parts oftentimes have 3 supporters. Those are the 3 feet of the part, and they have to guarantee that they are of equivalent height. Then they used pottery to design a special shape of pot, and then the utensil got further developed when reaching the Sanxingdui period of civilization. Hot pot came into being. So it's one of the most representative cooking parts in China. All right, our staff is still excavating the artifact. Now let's move to an oval-shaped jade piece in pit number 5. So you can see our staff is still excavating this jade piece. So we call it the Jade Eye, but this is a fairly big eye. Well, we believe it's in a shape of oval, so why it was kept so white? Well, because it wasn't burned, and jade can sustain its quality and color for a very long time. What is the object nearby? It's also something very smooth. And so this is pit 5. We haven't identified any complete piece of ivory or elephant tusk. So Dr. Tsai, tell us what kind of attention you need to pay to when excavating jade. So it's very difficult for jade to be excavated because it's very fragile in the surface, and you have to clearly sort out the relationship between the surface of the jade and condiments and elements nearby, and so you have to be very meticulous. So it requires a lot of very delicate operations, and we are looking at whether there is the hole at the center of the jade piece. Right now, it doesn't seem to have a hole in the center. So you can see we are lifting that up. Well, I believe there is a base beneath this jade piece. Well, this is the final stop, I guess. This is the final step. So we are inserting in a very thin plastic film. So this will help us see what is beneath this jadeware. So we are inserting another layer of plastic film. So we are lifting this precious jade up. All right, push it to the center. Now we're gonna transfer that to the lab to see whether there are some elements attached to the surface. We put it in the protection box. So this is a piece of jade in very good quality. Hand it over to his colleague. So you can see how delicate he is when holding that very precious piece. And there are some standard procedures, and you cannot hold with one hand. And now the next step is to take photos to assign a QR code to that piece. So this is roughly 10 centimeters long. It's very big. But what is it for? There is no hole in it. So there are more than one pieces of jadeware. And most of the jadeware is of similar size. We are giving a number, a code to this artifact, because in this pit we have identified a lot of golden foil, and there is the possibility that this jade is attached or associated to some other pieces. So the code is key 15. Jade is one very important piece in the Chinese culture and in the Chinese language, there are 500 characters associated with jade. So jade is one very big integral part of the Chinese civilization, and China is also a very strong power in manufacturing jade. As long as 5,000 years ago in China's northeast, there were jade excavated, and 8,000 years ago there were jade pieces, and 7,000 years ago in the Chengdu Relic site there were also jade excavated. So this is one very distinct feature of the Chinese civilization. So after the excavation of the jade, our staff is taking samples from the surrounding environment. For example, there are some bone pieces, and there might be some ivory plates. So we are taking earth samples. So this is the earth surrounding the jade piece, and we're going to put that in a box and then transfer that to a laboratory for further analysis. So our staff is kneeling down on the platform. He's very meticulous, and you can see that there is no complete piece of ivory in this pit, and maybe there are some ivory sculptures, there are some delicate patterns on the surface, but all the things excavated will be sent to a laboratory for restoration purposes. Alright, our staff is still taking samples from the pit. We're going to stay focused on the progress of the excavation work. Thank you very much. So this is the CCTV special program on the new discoveries of Sanxingdui. We're going to stay focused on this, and 2 days ago we excavated a bronze drum or bronze utensil. After 2 days of restoration, today it's unveiled itself to the public. Now let's get connected to Shuai Jinchuan, my colleague, at the Sanxingdui Museum. So what you now see on the screen is the large bronze utensil that is transferred to the Sanxingdui Museum. You can see that our workers are cleaning the dirt and earth attached on the surface, and we have been observing this process because it's very meticulous, and it may seem very solid, but after being buried underground for thousands of years, it's very fragile and it can be very crispy. We were told by the staff that this may be of the height of 70 centimeters, and this is the largest bronze drum that we have excavated from the Sanxingdui Center, and it's very worthy of our research, and they are busy with the restoration. And let me ask you, Mr. Du, so what else do we need to do after this step? So we are right now cleaning the earth on the surface, and after that we're gonna use a CT scanner to see whether there are some stuff inside this utensil, and if there are no stuff inside, we can be a little bit more bold in cleaning the surface. So was that so like before? In Pit 1 and Pit 2 there were a lot of shells, but right now we have CT and we understand what is put inside, and that will make our work a lot more easier. So I see that you are collecting the dirt and earth on the surface, and maybe you're gonna conduct some further analysis, and we have a lot of questions. So why we put it this way? Why don't we put it upright? Well, because this has been buried underground for thousands of years, and when it was buried, it was broken already, and then after buried for thousands of years, we have to be very careful about the center of gravity of this utensil. We don't simply break that, and after cleaning the earth, we can maybe turn it around and to clean the other side. So how well is this preserved? So when it was buried, it was already damaged and D-shaped. So we have to restore that. We have to add the missing parts. We have to work out some mold and supplement the missing part. So as was discussed just now, so he has a lot of experience. He has 30 years of experience in repairing bronze utensils, and he has personally restored a lot of the bronze utensils. So tell me, how long do you think this will take for you to repair this piece? Well, this is a very large bronze utensil, and what we need to do is to clean the surface. We have to do a lot of sampling. We also need to do the CT scanning. We need to build a modeling, and so after all this are done, then it's completed. So, but bear in mind that we need to collect the samples, and then we need to get down to very meticulous manual operation, and that may take as long as half a year. So you can see that our staff is still repairing and restoring this bronze utensil, and after restoration, they are going to recover the original color of the bronze utensil, and we understand that it's a lengthy process before it can be ready to be unveiled to the public. And in that process, we also see that there are a lot of delicate patterns, and in that process, experts from other disciplines will be convened here to conduct relevant researches.
So talking about the patterns and also the articraft, what kind of features it showed? First of all, I could say it's a piece of a giant piece from a very large mold with the large diameters compared to the original the findings from pit number 1 and 2. In total, I believe the whole feature is actually more or less the identical, but still you look at it has only characteristics. So you look at the decorative elements, actually you look at it at a different position, and it has more vivid ornamentation. And also the pattern we before found is more the 2D. Right now you look at this one, it's more 3D pattern. And another thing is that the animal mold has. So it showed clearly that a separated making process. So it's not really made up together. So it adhered to the whole body of that. So it's a different casting technique involved. So we look at the middle part and a lower part. So it's the embossed pattern show that the 3D effect. So it's quite the sharp patterns. And also look at that the pattern and also the casting techniques is quite good because you look at the whole pattern and the arrangement of that pattern is quite evenly distributed. And we also talk about the castings actually compared to the previous foundings. Actually, this one is actually more firm and subtle, so that the casting technique actually also advanced and also represent the specific age technique. And also we talk about look at actually they have different colored paintings involved. So we talk about actually brownware reflects the features of a certain civilization and culture. So talk about the Chinese civilization, and also we compare to the other similar or the other civilization at the same time period. Was the something in commonality? So we talk about the Sanxingdui the brownware actually shows strong the geographic features, and also look at this as is also shared in commonality in terms of the Shang dynasty and also the southern part of China. We talk about the Hunan, Hubei, and also the southern part of Shanxi actually all found a similar brownware. So far, based on preliminary understanding, we believe that the central place and also the quite approaching to the southern part of China could be a big producing area. So right now in Sanxingdui, we found this kind of styled zun or the utensil gathered here in Sanxingdui. So we talk about it should be a quite attractive to the people in Sanxingdui, and also that these people brought all these brownware from the Yangtze River basin to this area. Thank you very much. Actually, based on Mr. Yang's introduction, we could know that this piece of the brownware actually could tell a lot of stories and know more about civilization. Thank you very much. Back to Beijing. So the brownware, the giant, the zun from pit number 3 right now is under repairing work. We could tell that it's a really detail-driven work, and also people actually use their magical hands. A lot of things on Earth for more than 100 years are actually already broken or missing parts. Right now, the people actually could use their hands to bring different pieces back and restore the original look. We talk about the Sanxingdui. Actually, you look at the masks and also the figures we got from Sanxingdui in 1986. We're quite inspired, especially the boggling eyes and also the big hat. So we talk about the foundings from Sanxingdui. The most attractive part still that brownware. So far, we look at the masks. The highlight piece still this one. This is a giant size mask of brownware, and this is really thrilling. And I believe this is one of the most representative piece from Sanxingdui. I believe this is the largest one. It's around 65 centimeters tall, 138 centimeters wide, and it's a square look with a very wide mouth, a little bit like smiling to us. So this is really giant size. Especially look at the eyes; it's so unique. So this is quite the buckling eyes with 30.5 centimeter in diameter and 60.5 centimeters long. According to the literature, Can Cong, the king, was described as a people with that bulging eyes. So it's similar as this one. Maybe back then, the ancient Shu kingdom made this dramatic, the mask. Actually, still people would like to see the truth among the clouds. So look at the mask. There are still large number of masks unearthed, either with different facial expression, either angry or serious. So you look at it, they have really large ears with pears, and also not just the male, and also the female mask. So we found like this is maybe the whistle that in the ancient times we look at this wide nose but with the closed mouth, but the whole look actually also with the large ears, and also the whole look and the facial expression is very calm. I believe this maybe represent the female figures. And also talk about gold masks. It's show a magnificent look, and also talk about the quite rich civilization back then, and also pick apart that it also represents that the hierarchy back then, the mask at the highest social standards. And look at their hairstyles as quite enriched. So look at it, they have two different styles. Some researchers believe that this may be the internal conflict between these two tribes and the new regime coming in, and then they moved to Jinsha, the other place, to establish the new kingdom, replace the one in Sanxingdui.
We don't know whether that's a true story happened back then in the history. I believe all the findings we got this time could tell us the stories back then. In 1986, it's the very first time we got a large number of excavated artifacts. But for the archaeologists, all the cultural elements compared to the civilizations along the Yangtze River or Yellow River, they share the similarities. So let's look into details, especially visit different places to look into the details. So we look at the middle branch of Shijiahe, that's in Hubei province. That's the middle area of the Yangtze River. You look at the mosque, more or less, let's say, is similar compared to the Sanxingdui. We look at the wider and big eyes, big nose, and the also large size of ears with piers. So maybe let's also visit in the Shijiahe ruins. So our correspondent also stand by there. All right, this is Hubei Shijiahe Ruin. And let's show you where exactly I am. So these actually can be dated back 4,000, 5,000 years ago. This is the factory actually making these kind of ware. You could see this is a lot of the ceramics. Actually, we talk about the ceramics or potteries we got from Sanxingdui. Actually, in the Shijiahe, you also can find these kind of cups. Actually, if you're drinking with these kind of pots, I believe that's a really good fashion. So we talk about that Shijiahe actually in Tianmen, the Shijiahe County, the whole area is quite large. You look at this map, actually it's around 8 kilometers, 8 square meters. And also look at right now we are here at this place. And we look at this actually the workshop make this kind of the pottery cup, and we actually not really actually got all the large number of the potteries. Actually, the expert told us there are even larger amount of the pottery underneath. So far the amount actually estimated as high as 24 million. So the experts said that they produce these large number of potteries that may be actually sold to other places for the trade exchange. So we talk about that the ceramic cups. So let's say for 5,000 years ago in the New Stone Age, that could be so popular or the best sellers back then. So that people like to drink water or wine with these the nice design stylish pots. So talk about the Shijiahe Ruin, that's the places that in the middle branch of the Yangtze River, and this is with the large size, the well preserved the items. So we talk about that 5,900 years ago to 3,800 years ago. So talk about it lasted 2,000 years. So this is actually buried this history as long as 2,000 years. So we look at the actually quite advanced progress gained in agriculture and the husbandry. We look at the rice planting actually is a key pillar of economic activities and also the income for household. So back then, we look at the productivity also showed the peak of the whole society. So Shijiahe, also the Shijiahe civilization represented the civilization of the Yangtze River. I believe that also represents a key status in the prehistoric civilization. So talk about the similarity or connection between Shijiahe and Sanxingdui. We talk about pottery, that could be one. And also we look at the unearthed ceramics. You look at the shape of these pottery, actually more or less the same as the shape we got from Sanxingdui. And also Shijiahe civilization and Sanxingdui civilization, I believe a biggest connection is the jade hat. Actually, this is the jade hat we got dated back 4,000 years ago. So compared to the brownware hat, of course, it's different in materials and a different size. But we look at exactly the facial expression and also look at the shape of the eyes, the pop out noses and the big ears with pears on it. I believe all these details actually tell us something similar, and is also for the same purpose for sacrifice. So the archaeologist said, based on all these details, the brownware hat could be actually started from Shijiahe jade hat. So we talk about the jade hat. Why actually is it so exaggerated? So the expert told us that these kind of exaggerated shape actually represented the people with highest power or the highest priest. So they showed their power, they showed their highest class of the whole society. So they make their eyes really big and show they have good visibility, and also the ears basically show that they could hear everything, and also the big nose, which means they can smell in a very sensitive manner. So we talk about all these elements. Actually, you could find the same positions or the same similarities in the Sanxingdui brownware hat. So we talk about actually based on all these similar details. At the New Stone Age, we talk about actually the cultural exchange actually is very frequent than we expected, especially the elements actually we got from the Sanxingdui actually you could find in these elements.
For example, in Liangzhu of Zhejiang, there are similar signs and styles, and this shows that in the New Stone Age, our ancestors had a lot of communication between different parts of China. And at that time, the cross-region communication of China had already started. Thank you very much. From Shijiahe of Hubei province, we follow the Yangtze River to the east, and now let's go to Lingjiatan Relic site of Ma'anshan of Anhui province. And in this place, we have excavated a lot of jade pieces, and it's one of the most astonishing sites for excavation of jade. And we have jade figures and jade pieces and jade plates. We can compare these two. One is excavated in Lingjiatan and the other is in Sanxingdui. You can see how similar their gestures are. So what is the detail about Lingjiatan? So my colleague Wang Ning will tell you more. All right, so we talked about the bronze figure and the Lingjiatan jade figure. In Lingjiatan, we excavated two sets of jade figure. I'm standing right in front of the Lingjiatan relic pit that has excavated the most jade pieces, and in this pit alone, we have three jade figures. So you're now seeing the recovered image of the excavation, and these are replicates of the original pieces. And you can see that similar to Sanxingdui, and the face here is also in square, and you can see that it's pretty ritual, and one of the human figure is standing and the other is sitting there. So why I say that this is very delicate? Because in one set we have three human figures, but they are in different gestures. Imagine how hard it can be 5,000 years ago in collecting materials and also in sculpturing. If you look at the images of the three figures, and this one is wearing a very beautiful belt, and this one here is wearing a very long jade beam chains, and this is also found in other jade pieces excavated here. And on the back part of it, there are pierces and holes. this was originally found in the Hongshan culture. According to experts, those jade figures, they might be ornaments that go along with people's dressing. And so this is an area that covers more than 160 square kilometers, and it dates back to 5,800 years and 5,300 years ago. So there are two stages, and between 5,500 years and 5,300 years, which was a very rapid period of development, and we had excavated a lot of jade tortoise and jade eagle, and most of these jade pieces were found from this period. And at the Lingjiatan relic site, we also excavated some stone tools. For example, some of the remained fabrics from jade, and you can see that at that period of time there was already an industry of jade manufacturing, and there are two different manufacturing methods. One is to burn them and the other is to rub them. And at the same period of time there were jade sculptures in the shape of bird excavated. You can take a look at the delicate patterns and sculptures, and in Sanxingdui we also found some similar patterns of bird and sculptures in the shape of bird. So that is why I say that the origin of the Chinese culture is just like millions of stars forming into a galaxy, and this is the imagination of the ancestors that lived on the vast land of China. So in lifestyle, both Lingjiatan and Sanxingdui people, they live nearby a river, and also they pick a highland, and they cultivated pigs, and pig is one of the source of protein, and pig can be also used for sacrificial ceremonies. And sacrifice is one major and shared part of the culture in Lingjiatan and Sanxingdui. And no matter it is in Lingjiatan or in Sanxingdui, I believe that this is one of the stages of the Chinese history, and eventually they're like streams flowing into the big and giant river of the Chinese civilization, and after flowing for thousands of years, they have already become the culture insignia of the Chinese people. Well, thank you very much for your very detailed introduction. So in addition to Yangtze River Basin, and what is the cultural connection of Sanxingdui with the Yellow River Basin? So it's 1,000 years away when we talk about Erlitou relic site, and Erlitou is one of the birthplaces of the Chinese civilization, and it was here that we found the earliest bronze workshop and also pottery workshop in Erlitou, and we found some similarities between Erlitou and Sanxingdui, and according to experts, the Sanxingdui might be affected by the culture of Erlitou. And now let's have a close look at the Erlitou relic site. Over the years, we have excavated a lot of ivory plates, and if you look closely at the ivory plates, on one side, it's very short. On the other side, it carries a lot of patterns, and if you look at the evolution of the ivory plates, it's becoming more and more like the image of dragons. And so in Sanxingdui, we have excavated some ivory sculpture in the shape of dragon, and maybe that is a result of the influence from Erlitou. So here in Erlitou, the culture spreads to other places. For example, one of the pathways to go through Hubei and Hunan and all the way to Guangdong and to Hankang, and the other way is to go southwest, and it goes to Sanxingdui and also to the northern part of Vietnam. So the culture in Erlitou was pretty advanced and well developed at that time. It was the center of gravity of the Chinese civilization. So every sculpture, it represents a higher level of civilization, and it has generated some influence to the culture of Erlitou. In both Sanxingdui and Erlitou, we have excavated some bronze plates decorated with some gemstones. And the bronze plates in Sanxingdui had not so many gemstone ornaments, and but in Erlitou we have found a lot of plates decorated with gemstones. And the 1,000 kilometers away from each other from a geological perspective, but our ancestors, they traveled a very lengthy and arduous journey in between these two places. And we can see that advanced culture could generate a very strong attraction to other regions across China. If we go further up, let's take a look at the Gansu Majia Yao culture relic, which is 2,500 years ago, and it has excavated a lot of bronze knives, and a lot of the artifacts excavated there have patterns of sun and birds. And now let's take a look at this set of artifacts, one excavated from Sanxingdui and the other from Majia Yao. According to experts, the ancient Shu people may have come from northwestern part of China, and according to a lot of the artifacts that we have unearthed, maybe at the later stage of the Majia Yao culture, some people migrated from China's northwest to Sanxingdui. And now let's get in contact with Jiang Jian, my colleague, who is at the Majia Yao Cultural Relic Museum. So I'm right now at the Gansu Lintao Museum, and the first colored pottery piece was discovered. It was in Majia Yao village of Gansu province. So that is why this is the place of origin for this colored pottery. And it can date back to 5,300 years ago. And in Gansu province, nearby this region, we had a lot of excavations. In Gansu, there are more than 10,000 pieces of artifacts excavated from here, and you can take a look at the pottery pieces displayed behind me, and most of those pots, pans, or plates. The many in variety, and the pottery here is also known for its colored patterns, and they have dark colored lines in curves, and also mimicking water waves, and also the sun and birds and other beasts and animals. This shows that they have the worship towards animals that exist in reality, and also animals and figures that exist in their imagination. And in Sanxingdui, we have excavated a lot of the artifacts in the shape of birds or sun. And now let's take a look at what are the features of the artifacts here. So in front of me on this table, we have a lot of replicates of those artifacts. Take a look at this bowl. On the surface of this bowl, there are a lot of patterns in the shape of birds. You can see the bird's wing and also the bird's feather. Clearly, this is a bird. And also on the surface of this pottery pot or vase, you can see that this is very abstract. And this black dot is the eye of the bird, and the other patterns and lines, they represent the feather of the tree. And take a look at this concentric circle, and this is a human figure, and the circle at the top is the human head, and then we can see the limbs, and at the bottom we can see a water wave pattern. And here I prepared a drawing of pattern evolution on the colored pottery piece of Majia Yao, and you can see that the pattern has become more sophisticated and more abstract with the passage of time. Majia Yao and Sanxingdui, although they were not from the same historical period, but from these patterns of birds, we can see that they share the similarity in worshiping God and also worshiping birds. And the worship of birds accounts for a very important position in the ancient civilization, because traditionally they try to understand the surrounding environment by observing the birds. And when the birds are flying to the south, then they know that winter is coming. And when the birds are flying back, and they know that the weather is going to get warmer. And they believe that the birds are also a messenger between human beings and also the heavenly God. And also sometimes the birds, they believe they can fly into the sky and hold the sun. So that is how the sun rises and sets. So Majia Yao relic site is located in between Gansu and Qinghai province. According to archaeological researches, in Longnan of Ningxia, there were a lot of pottery pieces excavated, and at that time, the ancient Shu people, they have already started to use the colored pottery pieces from Jiayou, and one wild guess from the experts is that maybe the colored pottery culture of the Chengdu plain was the result of influence from the Yao culture. As you know that the Chinese civilization started from many sporadic and scattered civilizations distributed across the country. So how do we streamline this? I believe we will need more archaeological research and knowledge. Back to you, Chunye. Thank you very much for your introduction from Jiayou. According to archaeological research, 4,000 years ago in the Chengdu plain, there were people living there, and they cultivated rice, they built houses, and they also formed very large cities and formed their own culture. And now let's get connected to my colleague Bai Lu, who is reporting from the Chengdu Museum. So Bai Lu, tell us, what is the life like for ancient Shu people? All right, I'm now at the Chengdu Museum. Behind me, you can see a lot of the stone utensils and very delicate pottery utensils. And these can date back to the ancient Shu civilization, which were from the Chengdu plains. And they can date back to 4,500 years ago and 3,700 years ago. And we have found a lot of relic sites. One of the most well-preserved is the Baodu Ancient City Relic Center. The experts, they believe that this is originated from the Baodu culture, and if you look from a time perspective, this is earlier than the Sanxingdui culture. So it's an evidence that before Sanxingdui culture, there were people living in the Chengdu plains, and at that time, what was life like for those people?
So there's no record by letters or the characteristics to talk about the whole lifestyle, but actually based on all these the unearthed items, we would like to restore the original look of the people living back then. And this is the map. Overall, we could see the whole landscape of Baodun Ruins. So Baodun Ruins actually divided in the inner layer and the outer layer. So we talk about the whole area is actually equal to 300 football courts in terms of size. So the excavation or the archaeological work actually is still going on for more than 10 years. In the recent years, we found that actually the thing is already verified that the people back then already knew how to grow rice, and also they had the hog at home for the productivity, and also they also have the place for planting and places for the sacrifice, and also the place for residential purpose. And this is the back then the buildings for the residential areas, and also look at the larger size houses and the smaller ones. And right now in Baodun Ruin, we found the very largest building. Why? The right now is covering 210 square kilometers. So you talk about actually the 200 square meters. This is a huge house, right? Especially if it dated back to 4,005 years ago, this should be a really huge house. So with all these findings, it helps us to further understand that before Sanxingdui civilizations in Chengdu Plain actually had people already existed there, and also actually had a foundation for people to live. Actually, there are a lot of guesses and other curiosities around the Sanxingdui civilization. So no matter it's the continued work of the Baodun archaeological work, and also the Sanxingdui's the re-excavation work, we hope that from the different pieces of findings, we would have the new key to answer to the different doors of questions. This is the situation right now here in Chengdu. In our studio, we also invite the researchers from the CAS. Thank you very much. And for Mr. Wang, I would like to ask you the first questions. Let's see the Sanxingdui culture alone. I saw that there are a lot of the quite weird, let's say, that's the elements, but actually we've put in a larger context in terms of the history, in terms of other civilizations along the Yangtze River and the Yellow River. Actually, they share a lot of similarities with other civilizations. How do you think? Yes, indeed. We just saw a lot of examples across the different civilizations that showed the integration and exchange of different culture. Actually, you could tell that a really frequent cultural exchange started in a very early date. Because right now we just bring our focus to Sanxingdui. So we talk about the Sanxingdui's cultural exchange with other surrounding culture showed one thing. So the dominant the cultures or the advanced civilization influence the other cultures. So you talk about like the water actually flow from the high altitude to the lower altitude. So they seem like the culture influence. So we talk about the Sanxingdui actually is the place received the a good advantage or the highlights of other civilization or fun traditions and integrated into Sanxingdui civilization. We talk about not to focus on the material level the civilization, but also like the spiritual pursuit. So Sanxingdui or Untitled Ruins, and we also talk about in the southwest areas. Actually, all these actually influence different civilizations. We talk about religions or the belief actually showed even stronger influence and impact on different civilizations. Let's go back to Sanxingdui, especially to the ancient Shu Kingdom era. Let me give you an example to say that Archaeological. So that metaphor I would like to use is like we talk about that jade stick or the other jade ware. So that's the reason behind the original pace. Of course, that for the influence spreading actually should take some time. So we talk about the culture at the central plane actually is spread to the other places. So we talk about you look at the no other civilization actually is not compared to Sanxingdui for these collected excavations or the unearthed the artifact we found. So it's first talk about one thing is a quite frequent cultural exchange, and also we talk about the influence of different cultures. So based on what we know now, like the ancestors, that how they interact with each other, that's also for certain angles to tell us that actually the Chinese civilization actually is dual the strengths of different civilizations. Welcome back. Just now we give you the timeline about the latest progress in Sanxingdui excavation work. The pit number 3 so far among the 6 updated the newly discovered pit, we found 109 brown wares and 107 ivory and other shells, the jade ware and the gold foil. Starting from the January until now, the artifacts already showed their original look. We hope we could have more to expect. And let's get back to the Sanxingdui studio. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the AR studio and work with Director Wang Wei to give you the more updated information. So let's zoom in to pit number 4. Especially that the one with all our focus on that the buried belt of that golden foil, and the staff work really hard with the working on their belly. So still that clean the earth or the soil covered that gold. You can see the color is still vivid, although that buried for 1,000 years, still quite shining. So it's really make our eyes widely open before it does so. It should be quite just a smaller piece, but at least right now we could tell it's when folded, it should be at least 30 centimeters long. So this is really large in size. It could be a potential wand. So let's see the other side. We don't know, that's maybe still a folded part. If we talk about it should be a wand, then that should be flat at each end. So can we tell, judging from this angle, it should be a wand? Because that before that 142 centimeters, the wand we got from the before the wand. So we don't know whether this is also could be the same one. And we talk about this may be a golden strip or belt, so that also could be a other one. So of course this is not really the fish shape, so we talk about have the carving pattern on top, and this is really like the same shape as the one we got before, the golden wand. So actually the concentration of the gold is really high. It's like even higher than the 85%. So it's like 18K with the today's standards. So it could tell this is pure gold ware. That is why you have this so attractive color. We talk about still maybe take a longer time to clean the surrounding area. So we're not really clean that pottery on top of that golden foil. Right now we're cleaning the sand at both sides. So we don't know that whether we have 100% confidence to clean that pottery, because still that pottery quite fragile, upside down maybe, or maybe just a remaining pieces of the bottom of the pottery. This still folded one, right? It's a folded wand, maybe. So we talk about the length. Right now we still cannot give you exact answer about how long it could be. So talk about a golden mask. Actually, it gave us a big surprise. We couldn't really expect that it could be a mask. So that's a really exciting news for us. So let's wait and see what this one going to be, and also look at the sophisticated details and also the process. We tell them covering the hollow structure. Actually, it's quite matured. Right now, I don't know whether we're collecting the sample of the sand, the earth. Yes. So I believe we could not really get the whole piece out in today's live streaming, but still we have that possibility. So that's the actually on top of the back of the suits of our staff is saying that facing to the gold. and for the staff actually working in this position for at least 1 hour. As starting our live streaming, to work in this position on his stomach. So let's wait for more surprise and good news. And we talk about the pit number 5 right now. Already actually transferred the unearthed relic to the first room here in the laboratory. So this is a emergency room for the a quick analysis. So this afternoon, this a oval shape or the a jade tablet actually brought here for the initial analysis. Right now, we actually look into this the ultra depth microscope to look into the details of this jade ware. So it's the pure white. Right now, we haven't seen any pattern on top of that. The actually could tell is the a quite well preserved. There was still some crackers on top. But look at the colors showed the white and yellow, especially near that crackers. That maybe the sand went inside through that crackers. So for each and every jade actually will go through this process. So this is the first stop for ODA unearthed a wares, and we not only have these equipment such as a microscope, and we also have the IR hyperspectral detector. And this helps us to know more about the materials of the jade. And actually, this is the way that it can have less damage to the relic. So it quickly tell us the inner construction.
We can also see that there's a computer screen. We're just going to show the result of the scanning later. Our researcher will analyze the composition and the material of this jade piece. You can see that on the computer screen, the result is being analyzed and summarized into several lines. Yes, we already have the results, and we used microscope to observe the jade, and we found a very tiny crack at the very center. All the remaining part has been kept intact, and it's very well preserved. We are also using the infrared ray spectrum scanner to look at the composition of this jade, and according to the IR spectrum scanner, and also according to the comparison of big data, we believe that this is one of the Xiuyan jade. All right, thank you very much for your quick judgment, and I believe this is only rudimentary, and we have to transfer that to another lab for more detailed analysis. Back to you, Guangquan. Thank you very much. So, Professor Wang, so this is a Xiuyan jade. So, where is that jade from? So, Xiuyan jade is normally from China's Liaoning province, and this goes far beyond our imagination. And of course, this tells you how people were communicating at the time. During the Yin Ruins period in Shang Dynasty, there were a lot of cultural communication between the Central Plain area and China's northeast part. So this is a new clue. All right, now let's turn to page number 3. Page number 3 has given us the majority of the artifacts, and we can see that there is another artifact buried beneath this bronze and in the left of this footage, you can see a lot of marine or ocean shells, and some believe that this is a result of trade. So where do you think the shell come from? So the shells, they were used as a very precious tool in Shang Dynasty, and in Zhou Dynasty, shell was used as a currency, and at the sacrificial ceremonies in Zhou Dynasty, shells were used as a sacrifice. And you can see that some of the pieces can be connected together, and during Shang Dynasty, at the central area in the capital city area, there were a lot of shells I worked together with Japanese researchers in my research institution. We found out that there were a lot of shells, and most of them were from the South China Sea. And I believe that research can be very interesting, and very likely the shell may come from the Central Plain area of China during the Shang Dynasty, and maybe it's a result of trade, or it was given to the ancient Shu kingdom as a award. So these are the two birds carved on the surface of the big bronze stream that we excavated yesterday. You can see that it's still not fully excavated, and this is a very typical bird sculpture attached to the bronze stream. So on the surface we have a lot of patterns, and we haven't talked about one topic, and we are seeing that in ancient Shu country there were a lot of jade, but there was no characters, written characters from that. In page 1 we found out 8 signs or 8 symbols, and I have a colleague who was researching into the signs of China's warring period, and he believed that there is no connection between the written characters of warring period and Sanxingdui. Well, I hope that we can further our research, and one of the things that I could imagine is that on one side of the bronze stream there is these characters of ancient Shu country, on the other side there is the bone characters of Chinese. So it was like a synchronized translation of the language, but that is only my imagination. And also the bronze lei in China's warring period was quite prevalent. So how about this one? So it was damaged because the bronze string above it fell off and broke it. So this is fairly big, and I believe that it was a container. Well, it's very hard to say at this moment. So this is the wreckaged part of the twin. And inside the utensil there are a lot of carbonized elements, and we found out that a lot of the shells were contained in those utensils. So maybe in those containers there were a lot of shells. In P2 we discovered more than 1,000 shells, so it's highly likely that there were a lot of shells. And it's very interesting, in Shang Dynasty, lei and jun, they were used to contain wine, but here they were used to contain precious artifacts. So what you now see on the screen is the branches of the divine bronze tree. So you can see that in P2 we have 3 divine bronze trees, and this one doesn't appear to be small, and we have a lot of expectations for that, and maybe we can excavate a very large divine bronze tree. So we are truly looking forward to more astonishing discoveries. And so it looks very strange, but this is not in any way an academic term, but we are still looking forward to see how that is and what that is. And you can see that we can see a feet of human figure, and we can also see the hands. So this is what I saw from my angle, and you can see that there are 4 supporters which are supporting a very big squared platform. Above the platform we have 2 feet of a human figure, and you saw that the head is missing, and maybe this is just one divine or sacrificial altar. So it's quite different from the bronze string that we were talking about earlier. So maybe this is just a very wild combination. And so how is that related to the divine tree? Well, there are two possibilities. One is that the divine tree might be placed above this bronze string because, we are archaeologists. We have to put into consideration all the different possibilities. So what you now see is the year of the bronze figure that is facing downward. So it has a width of 135 meters and it has a height of more than 70 centimeters. So the wooden stick is 1.36 meters long, and so you can see that this one is clearly larger. You can see that his face is facing down, but this is unlikely. The horizontal placed wooden stick, so we have a lot of expectations, and we don't know to what degree the shape has been disformed, but you can tell that this is a fairly large artifact, and this might be the largest artifact to be excavated from this pit. In most other areas, we see that they are covered by white tiles, and you can see that the two ears are on both sides exposed, and at the very center we have a very long elephant tusk. So we have to very carefully preserve the elephant tusk before we can turn it around and see the other side of the face. So truly this figure, this statue is facing the yellow earth and have his back facing the sky. All right, back to our studio in Beijing. Welcome back. So in pit number 3, we have excavated a divine bronze tree. And this is no surprise because 35 years ago in pit 1 and pit 2, there were multiple divine trees excavated because it were severely damaged. And that is why today's day, the archaeologists, they are still recovering the divine tree. And we are also repairing the newly excavated divine tree. And now let's get connected to Shuai Jianquan, and so tell us more about what is going on there at your front. All right, thank you very much. I'm at the Cultural Relic Preservation Center. And let me tell you what is going on with the restoration of the divine tree. You can see that they are still busy with the restoration of the bronze string, and you can see this is the divine tree, and they have been very busy with the divine tree excavated from pit number 3. When we first arrived, you saw 70 different pieces, but right now, standing upright, and it's unveiling its structure and beauty to the public. And now let's have a few words with our researchers. So what are you busy with over the past few days? So we have basically connected the main chunk of the tree, and you can see that it has 3 main chunks, and also it has 3 layers. Layer 1, it has only 1 branch. Layer 2, 2 branches. And when we bring that part here, it's 2 branches. So altogether, in this tree, we have 9 branches. And at the top of the tree, you can see that there is a bird-shaped statue. So this is very strange and wild, and it shows the artistic creation of the ancient Shu people. And it's a bird beast with a human head. So the most striking feature is that it has 3 branches, 3 chunks. And also at the top of the tree, we have a human head and bird body figure. So it's quite strange, and it's worthy of a lot of research. So in a process of restoration, what reference do we have when putting together these pieces? So we have to look at the sections and the shape of the broken parts. So if they can clearly match, then they were originally one complete piece. Another very important reference is that on each main chunk, there is one interface that allows us to connect the missing parts. And you can see that there are clearly two levels, and at each level there is one interface for connection, and that is offering us a lot of references and giving us a lot of clues. So we have to rely on these clues. So what are the remaining work to be finished, or are we still in a very rudimentary stage? So going forward, we are going to completely restore the divine tree excavated from pit number 3. You can take a look at the bird statue, and we have some missing part for the wing and also for the tail. So when we are restoring that, we have to come up with some clay sculpture to put that into a very complete piece. And also the crown of the human head statue is missing, and we also have some missing parts at the other side. And also there are a lot of missing elements on the tree, and we are not going to repair all those missing parts. So once it is restored, we're going to put it in a museum so that it can meet the public. All right, we can expect that this will be a very lengthy process, and I understand there are a lot of questions on why after 30 years the divine tree number 3 hasn't been restored. I can tell you that the restoration of divine tree number 1 and number 2, they have been restored for 10 years, and the divine tree displaced at the museum is as high as 3.6 meters, and it took 10 years before this tree was displaced in the public.
And also see Mr. Guo is also doing a lot of preparation work. So what are you doing here? So talk about our preparation work actually is more for the testing and preliminary, and we work with the Palace Museum and also with Peking University to establish the modeling and know exactly the inner structure and also casting technique involved in this divine tree. And this is a 3D scan of that a bird had a human had bird body, the artifact, and also know exactly that the casting as a one piece or the casting in different pieces and assembling them together. So based on these actually help us to know exactly what kind of the casting technique involved, and also talk about these technique actually shared among the other brain wares we found in Sanxingdui, and that also talk about that the people back then actually owned quite high technique in casting. I believe this is very important for us to know more about the civilization of bronze ware in Sanxingdui, and we also use 3D scan technology to look into the details about this divine tree and use the digitalization for restoration purpose. I believe these series of moves can help us to build up a plan for restoration, and also that help us to show the public about the result of how technique help us to restore the culture relics. Thank you very much. Right now we can see with the development or the advancement of technologies that these actually give us more support in the cultural excavation and the restoration. I believe that we could see the whole look of divine tree number 3 as early as possible. So based on the current progress, Sanxingdui number 3 pit, we found some the pieces like the whole trunk and also the branches. Actually, we could tell this a larger size, and we talk about number 1 and number 2 divine tree. Actually, right now already displayed in the museum. We could see whether this a separate tree, we name it as number 3, or actually is a same tree as the tree number 1. So let's look into the details of this number 1 divine tree. Is with a 3.95 meters tall. Actually, we spent 10 years to restore its original look as what you are looking now. And we look at the 3 branches for each level. It's either like a curved up or curved down, and also on each branches we have birds, so in total 9 birds. You could see actually the chest up and head to the heaven. And we don't know whether you know that these quite similar is a fish bird, And we talk about it's quite similar as the Luzi or the cormorant. So we don't know whether that cormorant actually represents a high standards in Sanxingdui people's life, but that's a fish bird. And I also look at the missing part. Actually, that's the top part. We don't know exactly what exactly it's missing. It's maybe a bird or maybe something else. So experts also expected maybe we could find that missing part, so that also can verify in the literature that 10 birds represents 10 suns. So we don't know what exactly we could expect, but as long as we could get more excavated items that provide additional keys for us to open the door towards the civilization in Sanxingdui. About the secrets of the ancient Shu kingdom, about the kings, about the passes, about the whole look of the ruins, actually that wait a time and also wait us to find more. We talk about the literatures, we look at the records, we look at a lot of things behind this Chinese character Shu actually could tell us more. So we look at a lot of things. We talk about that the literature about the Changyi, Zhuanshu, the eight kings in the ancient time, they're all related to the southwest region. So we talk about that they near to the Shu area. So we talk about looking to the books, especially the historical books that's all related to the Chinese culture Shu, or that's the place in the current map and the southwest area. Then we talk about why we actually always mention about that the early literature of the Central Plain. So puzzle 2 or the mystery 2. Based on the carried forward literature, we talk about the region in the Sichuan area is called Shu. So we talk about this is something represented Sichuan area, and also talk about Rongdi. Actually, also found a lot of the records in the 18, especially early time of a Qin period. So we actually checked the literature. Actually, just less than 10 places mentioned the Shu. We couldn't really tell exactly from that 10 places. Mystery 3. And the Oracle materials whether can tell us the secrets. So from Inshu, actually we found the Oracle Inscription. So we talk about whether we could use these kind of the inscription to help us understand the Shu culture. Actually, Guo Muru was the first person to connect the Shu with the other literature or the civilization. But actually, experts have different opinions around it. We talk about in the classic literature, Shu is not the same understanding as we know Shu than what it represents. Another puzzle we talk about actually from the Bashu area, we look at the pattern or the signal actually that represents the Bashu. So that's the character or the logo of their tribe or just a painting or totem or graphics. It still wait for the further verification. So we're looking forward to find either the single message or short lines describing the Bashu or even Shu kingdom. So Shu, actually, this character represents a lot of stories and puzzles and mysterious stories. So we talk about this is a character, the Chinese letters, but we talk about that how far Sanxingdui Ruins from the history of letters, and this time whether we could possible to find characters or letters. Based on our work, we know that look at they have quite high tall walls and also the sacrificial pits and residential areas, and also look at the shape of the brown wares actually show quite strong the characters and also have its own features representing Sanxingdui. So this actually told us actually Sanxingdui kingdom did existed with splendid culture actually. So we talk about the Sanxingdui from these brown wares. I should talk about that already with quite a matured the lighters. For myself, I believe it did have the A characters, but so far we didn't have any archaeological evidence. Still, in the latest 6 pits, no characters shown. So we talk about whether letters already existed. Maybe yes, they could be written on some organical items like the wooden ware or the painted ware or on silk or other textile. For this kind of a subsistence actually could not really easily be preserved. At this time, actually, we found a lot of other items, but we didn't see any letters on that. So civilization has its own features. We talk about for the central plain, it has its own characters like the Oracle inscriptions or the other characters carved on bones. So for the Sanxingdui people, we believe they didn't have any tradition to carve letters on bones. We look at the Sanxingdui's actually look at these patterns that maybe just the letters. It's not patterns. It should be letters. So we talk about in the academical circle, we talk about if the patterns coming together, they could be considered as a letter. But right now we could see that it does existed in a single form. So maybe that could not be considered as a character or a letter. So we talk about the pattern if can really express the message or the descript of the world, then maybe serve as the same function as the letters, and later on that could be evolved as the matured letters. So we talk about that a pattern could be the early shape of the letters. We talk about the Oracle inspections. A Shang dynasty already quite well developed. So that should be a long time of development before Shang dynasty. So we should trace to its origin. I believe so far we didn't have any evidence, but that represents that no possibility to find the characters. Welcome back to our live streaming brought to you by CGTN New Media. We see more work done in the excavation work. I believe more artifacts can show the original look in front of us, and also that arouse people's attention and interest in the kingdom of Shu, especially the ancient Shu kingdom. And right now we are doing this night tour here. So let's see what we have here. So this is kind of like unboxing vlog for you. So this is a box with 0.4 meters long and 0.6 meters deep. So we haven't seen this one before. So first of all, for wood, actually it's quite rare to be seen because actually wood was really hard to be preserved. So you look at this already carbonized. So we talk about the red color actually is a sandbar back then. So the sandbar actually also can give us a signal that this box could be related to the sacrificial work. And this is not really tomb because it's so smaller size, cannot really for the human being body. And I believe this belongs to that ritual activities. We talk about actually look at this quite the art design, this is quite fashion. So I believe they leave all these empty space for sticking or putting more gold on it. These people were quite fascinated in gold. So this is maybe quite similar as we got from pin number 6. And look at this, another gold shining fountains. So it's a smaller pit, but I have abundant outcomes. So we talk about this time that the mask quite shocked to us actually even bigger than my face. Although just half of the face is around is 20 centimeters wide. So if it resort to its original look, that should be 40 centimeters wide. So which means like people back then in very nice shape, very strong. So we have a pulse machine. Actually, this is the labeling printer. So for each artifact, actually we had a label on it. So this is kind of a label printer. So for each, we not really talk about that the exactly item. Actually, for the sand, for the other every inch single pieces could be have a label on it. So this is our daily work recording. So just a letter written on the paper, but it conveyed the story, conveyed the warmth. Actually, this is the evidence. But actually, look at the people can really do this. The paperwork, they also could do a very detailed, driven, meticulous work. So based on these, the field and our fundings and also technology, we hope we could build a archaeological ruin park that available for the public and educate the outcomes we got this time. So with our hands and knowledge, we would like to convey that splendid civilization to the people, not only in China, also around the world. So far, for the 6 pits right now still undergoing the bidder work for excavation, we had the Tongzun, the big vessel. You have the ivory and also mask in number 5, and we got the golden foil in number 6. Let's also go to the Sanxingdui studio to learn more. All right, welcome back. I also work with our old friend, Mr. Wang, to give you more the details in the excavation work. So right now, you could see this is the A4 pit.
Number 3 to 8 are located beneath this giant structure, and they are pretty close to pit 1 and 2, which were discovered in 1986. Now let's take a closer look at these pits and see what progress is being made. First, let's take a look at pit number 4. Our staff is wearing a protective suit that carries some special writing styles of the Chinese language. And I can see his name is Zhang Shunli. So the staff, they are cleaning the earth beneath the bronze drum. And so what do you think is beneath that? Well, I believe we have a huge quantity of bronze utensils, bronze bottles and pots, and maybe we're going to revive the glory of the ancient Shu civilization. I think there is a lot of mystery behind that. So pit 3 has given us the largest quantity of artifacts. We have 9 bronzeware, 8 jadeware, and still more to come. So if I'm going to name the next zone that we're going to discover, that will be newcomer, because that will be newly found. So now let's take a look at pit number 4. In pit 4, we have a huge quantity of elephant tusks. But we have also seen a lot of gold stripes and gold birds and jade piece and jade cong, and I would call it the shining glow of jade. So we have elephant tusks and also jade tablets. I would say this is a pretty chaotic pit because we have a lot of artifacts scattered across different corners of the pit. Now let's move on to pit number 5. Pit 5 is shining with a lot of gold files, and that's why I would name the pit as the gold mine. So this is like a gold mine. There are a lot of gold files, and if I'm going to give it a name, I would say it's one file after another, because after excavating one golden file and you see another one, so there are new golden files being discovered always. And now let's move on to page number 6. So I would name this page The Mystery of the Wood Box. I had a lot of imaginations. Maybe it was silk cloth, and maybe it was the archives of the royal family written on leather or written on woven silk. I'm also wondering if there is fatty acid contained in earth samples. Well, I would give it a very strange name. Open the lid. If you open the lid, you will be able to unveil and uncover the mysteries. And now let's move on to page number 7. Page 7 is very big, but we are still cleaning the earth. And I would name it The Next Big Thing, because we can expect a lot of good things from this page, and there might be a lot of surprises later presented in front of us. Now let's move to page number 8. And page 8 is in a separate cabin. I would name this page Unveiling, because all the artifacts are unveiling themselves. And what is your name? Well, I would name it The Page Without Ivory, because so far no ivory has been found here. And I hope that we can find more artifacts from this page, from number 3 to number 8. And also we have page number 1 and number 2. So is there a pattern from all these pages? For example, their historical period, their directions, and also their depth. So we have to think about this question. Now is the time. And page number 1 and page number 4, they are the most identical, and they are located in the northernmost part of this relic site. And also page number 3 and number 2, they are in parallel, and they are placed in direction of northwest and southeast. And in the northwestern part, there is the Minshan Mountain, and there is mythology which believes that the ancient Shu king came from the Minshan Mountain. And truly, we have a lot of signs that show the connection between the Sanxingdui culture and the Minshan Mountain. And page number 3 and number 2, they are juxtaposed along the same direction, and there's a lot of similarities, and we believe that they were a pair. And page number 6 and number 5, they are also juxtaposed, and they are both very small. And number 8 and number 7, they are in different directions, and number 7 and number 8, they are 90 degrees difference. So maybe page number 7 and number 8, they belong to one set. So now let's take a look at page number 1 and number 4. Page number 1 is big, but page 4 is very small. We have excavated some jadeware and gold wine, and there's also a lot of elephant tusk. So if we divide them into different sets, I just offered you my conclusions. So page 1 has golden facial mask and also gold wine. So this is more like religious belief. And in page 2, we have the sun and also the divine tree, and this is more like a divine temple. So can we determine the fundamental nature of a page according to the artifacts? Yes, we can do that, but page number 5 has no ivory, and page number 6, there is only a wood box. So in different pages, in different pits, there are different artifacts. Were they buried at the same time, or were they buried at different times? And if it is the latter, how much is the interval? Is it a couple of years or decades? So this is still a question that we have to figure out the answer to. So we hope to have these answers as soon as possible. And now in front of pin number 8, there are a lot of plastic bags holding earth samples. To our knowledge, these samples, they will be collected and later transferred to a lab. So right now, we are looking at whether there are seeds of certain plants. In earlier times, we would simply dump this earth for landfill, but now we have more advanced technology, and inside the soil there might be a lot of elements contained. We can put it in a water bucket and add water in it, and then some of the plant seed, they would be floated to the surface, and we can scan that with a microscope, and sometimes we reach the conclusion that it's a crop seed. So right now we are having very precise analysis of those samples. And now let's get connected to my colleague Zhao Jing, who is reporting from the lab. All right, I'm from the lab and analysis center. So we're not just protecting the artifacts, but also the landfill earth. You can see that our researcher is doing an experiment on these earth samples, and this is a multi-disciplinary research by drawing and satirizing and separating the earth samples, and we can extract some carbonized samples. And right now our staff is observing those carbonized elements using a microscope. So what are the plants that used to grow here? So through this technology, we may be able to obtain the answer. So tell me what is shown on the screen. So this is the elements contained in the soil samples of pit number 4, and this is the section view of a carbonized bamboo charcoal. So what are the other work that you do? And currently we are still focusing on pit number 4, and right now from our analysis, there were a lot of charcoal from bamboos, and there are also white-leaved wood, and in Chengdu Plain, and also in the same historical period, there were a lot of charcoal from bamboo and from white-leaved trees. So those two plants, those two trees, they were very important to the lives of the ancient people, to our ancestors. And bamboos and this particular tree, they are used as wood fire sources, and sometimes the white-leaved tree will be used as a construction material for building purposes. And a lot of the times, they're used also as material for coffin and wood box. So with the new technology, we are able to understand how the ancestors were using the traditional materials, and were they used for sacrificial purposes or for other purposes. We have just kicked off our research, and it's still too early to tell an answer, but we're going to continue with our efforts. We're going to better understand the questions related to this very important field. All right, we understand that this will be continued going forward, and within the sample of Earth, a lot of information is contained. All right, back to you, Guangquan. Thank you very much. And there is a lot of mysteries behind this discovery, and there are this shining gold and also hundreds of elephant tusks, and why were they broken into pieces and then dumped into the pit and buried? So is there a reason for the falling of the ancient Shu kingdom? Is it because of a domestic coup, or is it because of natural disaster? So this is the question that we have been pondering for a very long time. But right now, there isn't clear signs that the kingdom fell because of flood or earthquake. And if there is flood, we are able to notice that. There are a lot of pending researches to be conducted, and we have to first and foremost understand the historical period when the falling of the ancient Shu kingdom started, according to the analysis of Peking University, and according to the identification of the historical period of the Chaco, we found out that it's from 3,200 years ago. So there are different guesses, and some believe that it can date back to 4,600 years ago, and a lot of people think that 4,600 years ago, it was already a very developed civilization. But now the consensus is that 4,600 years ago, it was the Baldwin people who were living here, and so we believe that this was the period when the Shang dynasty was having its capital at Yinxu Ruins. So if we divide the Yin Ruins period into two halves, the Sanxingdui culture may be located in the second half, because after Wuding there are 8 kings of the Shang dynasty, and we believe that Sanxingdui is located in the latter 8 kings of the Shang period. This is also equivalent to the Jinsha period. That is roughly 3,200 years, and that was the late Shang dynasty and early years of the Eastern Zhou dynasty. And we are exploring the connections between Sanxingdui and Jinsha, and there are a lot of similarities, and in particular the birds and sun and wind, and also the patterns, and also the golden belt and strip.
So we could tell from these details they showed a lot of commonalities between the Jinsha civilization and Sanxingdui civilization. And also right now they also moved their capital from Sanxingdui to Jinsha. We don't know is because of the conflict or the internal coup between the different tribes, or actually it is in the political purpose to bring their capital to the one place to another, because that's quite normal practice in other civilization. So we could not really tell, but the one thing we for sure is that they didn't really run to the Jinsha place in a hurry. Actually, we could tell this mitigation route is well planned. So we need to understand how these civilizations connected to each other. We didn't know actually it's the falling down of the Sanxingdui. And we talk about these totally two different civilizations. They have something shared in common, but actually they are still separate kingdom or separate civilization. Right now, the archaeological work helps us to stay close as possible to the history. I believe the new material found and also the new excavated outcome actually help us to understand more, and there's no end to our work. Back to Beijing. Talk about the Gushu civilization, especially the mitigation route. We need to once again mention about Jinsha in Chengdu. So we need to know exactly how long they lived there and any new findings. And our colleagues, a correspondent Zhang Lin was there. So Zhang Lin, take it away. So right now I'm here in the Jinsha Ruins Museum in Chengdu. And we could see 20 years ago, and this is actually the working field. And this is the pit actually we used back then. And still experts told us actually we didn't actually 100% excavated what they buried on Earth. And the area I'm standing in now, you could see actually this is the whole excavation working places. And we also invite a special guest, the president of the museum, Mr. Zhu. First questions. Look at this pit where the different square unit. We could see some numbers. So how that represents? Actually, that's a very important a mark we use in our archaeological investigation. We look at the stratus actually is the earliest one in the lower and the earliest at top. So the number is larger and represents the earliest date it was. So this is a strata basically tell the age of that sand or the layer. So we talk about right now, we coming to quite the end of a 4-day long live coverage. So we talk about Sanxingdui, let's say before the Sanxing or the Jinsha civilization that could be involved a capital mitigation. So how long did they live after this mitigation? I believe it's 600 years. So the 3,200 years ago to 2,600 years ago. So based on our excavation and also the artifacts, actually it's around 5 square kilometers, the whole area, and also found their factories and also the different specific areas for different purpose. And this whole area so far, based on our understanding, it lasted for 600 years. So another quite interesting point is here. Let me show you. So you may find more similarity. So this is our number 8 ruin, or our feature number 8. So just around the 1 meters in diameter. So far we got 345 items from it. So look at quite familiar mosque, right? And we also have others quite specific featured the pottery and jade ware. So let's say if we divided that 600 years in different timelines. So along the history or civilization of the Jinsha Ruin. So we talk about actually it's the peak time, that's the late of the Shang Dynasty, and also the beginning of the Western Zhou area. So we could see a large number of ivory and also the stoneware. And later on, we took at the ivory and gold actually is utilized frequently, and also we could tell that's not really at the peak time. And for this one, we could see a large, actually before it's a stockpile of ivory. We talk about how to protect ivory, and this is actually the world difficult issues waiting everyone to give our solution. But we talk about ivory actually didn't really extract all of them out. So we look at pit number 1. Actually, we filled back the sand actually to protect the ivory. The average length is around 1.2 to 1.6 meters. And under the ivory, actually, we found the brownware is not compared to the larger size in Sanxingdui, it's smaller size here. And also we found a jade ware. So actually, we talk about the ivory. The largest one is 1.85 meters long. It's a giant elephant or the Asian elephant. So talk about ivory also found in Sanxingdui. We talk about actually this time period. That also can help us understand the connection with Sanxingdui. Sanxingdui and Jinsha actually is so close in that relationship. So we talk about maybe the father and the son. So the Sanxingdui could consider as a father, and the Jinsha could be the son, and they actually coexist for a certain time. So the falling time of the Sanxingdui could be the starting point for Jinsha. So the Sanxingdui could be the capital, and the Jinsha could be a major city, and because of different factors, and the kingdom, the ancient kingdom Shu moved this capital to Jinsha and started another peak time for Jinsha Ruin. So this actually, we could see this actually through of this archaeological work along that 600-year journey. We also see the changes to their sacrificial area. So actually, at the end of the 600 years, the large size of ivory actually is less found, and also that the find the pottery and also the jade also is less used. Then my question, to that for that 600 years of a splendid civilization. We're now coming to the end of 600 years, then people actually lived in more rational sense, or because of that, the kingdom was not strong enough to afford people to use this kind of element anymore. So we need to consider different factors. So far, based on our understanding, is that people live in a more reasonable lifestyle. So we look at the Jinsha time period. If they share the same nature of culture, without really not only found in Sichuan but also in the plateau in Yunnan and Guizhou, and also the Hanzhou plateau in the Xi'an, the Shanxi province, actually found something similar in the sacrificial activity. So the way they do their worship actually is quite similar. So let's say we talk about the people back to their regional lifestyle. Then we talk about actually when you started your career, you actually one of the people involved in the excavation work, right? You was back then a student, master student. So for you back to 1986, actually, it's really a big impact to you, right? Actually, for me, quite thrilled. Actually, we talk about the people in the ancient Shu kingdom. Actually, you look at it, this really shows their characters show their personalities. Based on that, the artifact actually quite unique. I believe this is really key, important. The question you mentioned, we talk about similarity and the unique point. So when actually we studied the Jinsha and the Sanxingdui, we should look at their commonality. Of course, we should at the same time focusing on their personalities. If we look into details to characterize or bring them into different categories, actually we not really see a lot of the similarities. What we found a lot of the similarities. We look at the jade, we look at the small size, the brownware, and the artifacts, especially to the lower stream of the Yangtze River. Actually, they quite share the similarities. I can tell the nearly identical to each other. So actually quite similar. For example, patterns are very similar to the patterns we got from the central plain. So actually, that will help us to understand that the Chinese civilization. So that's also the people saying that in these days we talk about Sanxingdui is not the central plain culture. Is not the culture belong to the earth. Actually, you could not use a single case to over the similarities. So to the end of our live streaming here. So this Mr. Zhu also like to emphasize one message. So there are the several key ideas or the concept. We talk about the ruins, we talk about culture, we talk about highlights along that culture, civilization. We talk about pit 1, pit 2 that represents that the sacrificial architect. We talk about the age of the ruins quite long. Actually, we talk about the culture, just to a part of that ruin. We talk about the remaining, actually just represent another short period. For Sanxingdui, actually the ruin lasted for quite long. Sanxingdui culture actually lasted quite a short time period. And also look at the artificial, the sacrificial pit, just like a 3,200 to the 3,300 years ago. So actually, we need to be really clear about the differences between culture. We talk about 5,000 years ago. That's the difference between the different concepts about the ruins, the culture, and also the pit. And if we look inside each pit, some is an organical substance, right, already damaged. For example, the wooden or the silk products. If you want to know a full picture of the civilization, you need to think about from different angles. And then the result or the outcome is comparatively correct, covering the whole spectrum. I believe that we could see the archaeological work in a more dynamic manner. And this is from the museum in Chengdu Jinsha Museum. Back to Beijing studio. Thank you very much. Actually, for the mass market, we need to also view the archaeological outcome in a quite scientific and strict manner. From Sichuan Jinshan Museum to the Sanxingdui Ruins in the last 4 days, we focus on the newly process made in the Sanxingdui. Actually, we have seen a lot of surprise in the past 4 days. Of course, time-consuming process for archaeological endeavor. So what's the plan going forward? Which should be the priority? Let's contact our correspondent Zhao Jing. So share us more. All right, in these 4 days, actually, we were here on site and to witness the whole progress going on. So for each and every piece of the artifact that they buried for more than 1,000 years right now to show their beauty in front of us. Coming to this stage, we would like to know more about the progress. So first, focusing on ivory. Right now, we still have 127 ivory in pit 3 and the 36 ivory in pit number 3. We know this is the most difficult thing around the world, so that's involved high count and talents from the different disciplines. And for Sichuan, we'll also invite different experts from different sectors to give us their wisdom for the further excavation work. So from Sanxingdui Ruins, actually, we not really look into each and every artifact. More important, we need to know the civilization of ancient Shu Kingdom, their way of life, their way of work. So the archaeologists also tell us that they would like to know more a connection between that pit, the 06 pits, and also how that connect to the pit number 1 and 2 that we got found in 1986, and all the whole process of the ritual activities. So far, these pits, 6 pits, will release the whole plan a year later. Compared to 1986, pit number 1 and number 2, this time, the new round of the excavation actually with the help of the advanced technology, look at the carbon that can help us provide a constant temperature and moisture level.
All information is recorded electronically, and here on site, we found out that the staff, they are maintaining a written record. You can see that it's very detailed and it documents their work procedures each and every day, and there are a lot of drawings. I can study the staff, they're working on site. Why do they need to write this notebook, since a lot of the information is kept electronically? And they told me that this is a tradition given us by archaeologists from one generation to another, and this is a practice that they have been doing for hundreds of years. And another feature of this round of archaeological excavation is that they collect all the earth samples, they coat them, and then transfer them to laboratories. Archaeologists told us that although right now some of the information contained in the earth samples may not be understood, maybe with the development of technology in 20, 30 years, future generations will be able to understand the secret behind the earth samples. Back to you, Chunye. Thank you very much, Zhao Jing, for giving us the latest. So how will we engage in cultural relic preservation going forward? And now let's connect Shuai Jinquan, who is reporting from the laboratory in Sichuan. Thank you very much. So right now, a lot of the archaeological work has to be conducted at the relic site. So that is why we don't have a lot of pieces transferred here. And although we know that there are 500 pieces of artifacts identified, but less than a quarter of them have been transferred to this lab. So we know this is a very lengthy process. How will these cultural relics be better preserved? I understand the first step is to extract the organic elements. For example, the ivory or elephant tusks. We already have 2 of them, and we have to extract the DNA information of the bones, and there are more than 100 elephant tusks, and that is why we have 3 separate rooms to store the elephant tusks in a static and stable temperature and humidity environment. We can also see that the bronze string that we have unearthed from the peach, it is currently in the process of being restored, and we're going to conduct a lot of analysis, and gradually we are going to formulate a scientific scheme for restoration. It is also a very lengthy process. You are also very interested in how we restore the golden artifacts. We saw the gold facial mask and the gold sculpture of the bird, and there are some parts missing. I was told by the staff that they are very much looking forward that maybe future discoveries will help supplement those missing parts, and those are their expectations. Here on site in Sichuan, we have been observing, and what we feel very strongly is that cultural relic preservation and the protection of cultural relics are organically connected, because on site here we have a lab, and if we need to extract and analyze some of the elements, we have such a lab that is nearby. So this is more like a interdisciplinary hospital. Here we have very sophisticated facilities and equipments. And it is also here that we convene experts from multiple disciplines to come together and work out a restoration plan. I have one good piece of news to share, and this is a lab that we have built, which will be made open for the public, and later when you come here to visit the Sanxingdui Museum, you can oversee from the glasses how the staff they are repairing artifacts. Back to you. So, all right, now we can see that this is not just a technique, but also a subject of science. I believe that with the advancement of science and technology, we will be able to understand the history that is buried underground. We anticipate that a lot of the discoveries were related to pit 1 and pit 2, and I believe that with the discovery of more pits and more artifacts, we are going to understand more about the ancient
与
Shu
1986
kingdom.
年1·2号坑的抢救性
Different
发掘
from the
有所不同，
1986
这次的6个
excavation.
坑发掘做好了充分准备。从去年10月开始，几个坑上就陆续搭建了恒温恒湿的考古发掘舱。这一次不是清理完再做研究，而是在发掘过程中做研究，做成研究性发掘。考古工作人员希望在多年经验的积累和科学考古技术的支撑下，尽量少留遗憾。也正因如此，现场没有一把土被扔掉。由于此前的诸多研究成果和推测都是基于1、2号这2个坑的考古发掘，因此存在偏差。随着新坑文物的陆续出土，很多曾经的未解之谜将进入新一轮的讨论。首先是断代，以及根据断代判断8个坑的性质。有关8个坑的功能，始终是学界讨论的焦点。不少学者坚持认为这是祭祀坑。无论是祭祀功能坑，还是神庙被毁后的统一掩埋坑，亦或是其他功用，随着之后的考古发掘及研究，这个答案将会越来越清晰。这次发掘5号坑出土的金面具残片最为瞩目，这半张面具宽约23厘米，高约28厘米，含金量为85%左右，银含量在13%到14%左右。根据半张面具推测，这件黄金面具的完整重量应该超过500克。从面具的造型来看，不仅与之前三星堆1、2号坑出土的青铜面具有所关联，更与金沙遗址出土的黄金面具极为相似，因此也为三星堆与金沙之间的地承关系提供了依据。除了大量精美的青铜器、金器、玉器，目前出土象牙已有100余只。1986年1、2号坑发掘时，虽然出土了大量象牙，但由于当时技术的不完善，多数象牙未能妥善保存。这次的发掘再次提供了大批象牙样本，或许可有更进一步的研究成果。另外，还有一项值得关注的文物是丝绸。 这在此前的三星堆考古中从未出现。在中国丝绸博物馆的协助下，丝绸的功能、材质分析及后续保存也都在妥善进行中。对于接下来的陆续发掘，有专家表示，最期待的有以下几点：一是能否证明掩埋坑与曾经的神庙礼制相关，能否复原神庙内部场景；二是能否有目前3个纵目神像之外的纵目神像出现，从而去推断整个三星堆文明体系中的人神关系；三是能否出现与目前1、2号
Heavenly God
神
in
树
ancient Shu
等
Kingdom.
3棵
And
大型
another
神树。
expectation is
如
that
果有
can we
是否
expect
与山海
another
经中
very
的
giant
东斗
divine
三
bronze
世
tree?
有若木中央是剑木
And
的
if
神
we
话
could
传
do
说
that,
有
can
所
we
关联？四是
establish some
会否有
connections
更多
with
礼
what
仪
is
性
described
兵器
in
出
the
现？
Book of Mountain and Sea? And
接下来我
another
们继续走进
expectation
三星堆
is
演播室，请
whether
王
there
权
will
带
be
网友
more
来问一问节目的
weaponaries
专家。王权，请
unearthed
交给
from the pits. Now, let's get connected to my colleague Guang Quan, who is at the Guang'an Sanxingdui Relic Center. So we have attracted a lot of attention from both online and from the audience, and they give us a lot of questions, and some of those questions are mind-boggling. And we have a professor who is joining me in the studio, and now let's take a look at the first question. A lot of the giant statues have piercings on their ears, and can we expect a lot of rings? Yes, this is possible because in Shang and Zhou dynasty, we have excavated a lot of very giant rings. So maybe those piercings on ears are just for rings. The second question, did the ancient Shu people eat pepper? Well, pepper only came into China in China's Ming Dynasty from Mexico. And there is another record that it was only in Qing Dynasty that people in this part of the country started to eat pepper. But pepper is part of the Chinese culture, and we have some documentation of pepper in as early as China's Zhou dynasty, but we have a different type of pepper. We may have the hot pot already from thousands of years ago, but the flavor was quite different. Now the third question, 3,000 years ago, well, it's a very long history, and I'm talking about the old box. So how come it is still so solid and delicate? Well, I can tell you it's not solid at all. It's already rotted, but because we are able to understand that it was the wooden box from the soil and earth that is in the shape of the wood box, and we're going to better understand the fabric of the wood box. We have a lot of technological means to do that. Now the last question is that, is it possible that if we dig further, we can find a tomb or a underground palace? Well, this is a big question. Well, I believe if we're talking about the historical period before Qing dynasty, there was not the tradition of digging underground palaces, and it was only when Buddhism was transported to China, people started to dig up underground palaces. So we are digging up those raw earth. By raw earth, I mean that the earth not affected by human beings. I would say that the possibility is very low, because in the historical period before Qing dynasty, there was no such practice or tradition. So let me ask a question. With pit number 8 and number 7, can we expect some new pits? Well, we are doing a lot of analysis, and there are signs of human activity around the pit. And as for what exactly was buried underground, and we are still doing our research, but there are a lot of possibilities at this point of time. All right, I believe that with more information being disclosed, it will generate a huge craze among the public, and I hope that more people can pay attention to the Sanxingdui culture and also to the great Chinese civilization which has been passed down from thousands of years ago. And this will be the end of this program for today, and I hope, just as Professor Wang Wei has mentioned, we can expect more discoveries and more
考古挖掘的工作人员们还会继续在这儿辛苦的工作。那么在我们这段直播的最后，我们就让我们通过一个短片来，跟这几天来一直在发掘舱内一直辛苦作业的默默无闻的年轻的考古队员们道一声再会。我们也希望他们未来带给我们更多的考古新发现，带来更多的惊喜。
好，我们继续有请
Right, and also let's with our special guest, Mr. Wang Renxiang, with us, Mr. Wang from the class. So, Mr. Wang, we talk about one question: what is Sanxingdui? As if from our day one, and with our understanding, actually, we have more and more questions regarding Sanxingdui, with our these days live streaming and also the new findings. Anything you would like to share with us that the questions or puzzles or mysterious questions could have an answer? So in these days, actually, we experience a big highlight. Is world-class the excavation work in China. So we talk about this time. The most possible answer we could get is the nature of Sanxingdui Ruins. That's a lot of the hot debate going on among the archaeologists and other experts. So for myself, based on my observation, especially from the very beginning for the pit 1 and pit 2, that's 35 years ago in 1986. And right now, 35 years later, we got another 6 new pits. It's worth waiting. We talk about with the development of the archaeological endeavor, we can see actually multiple the ways could help us to understand more about the archaeological findings, and also we use different ways, different technologies to help us to do this excavation work. I believe this generation after generation, the hardworking spirit, and we should stay in ivory confidence that to believe ourselves we should for sure would have something to expect from these new pits. So, talking about new findings, how we could better understanding the importance of all these unearthed relics. The relics already found and also the relics on the waiting list. actually we look at this not reflected the people's daily life. We talk about actually that's the day one when we found all these findings, because for each and every piece there were a lot of message on board with all these relics. So we talk about at the very beginning, we talked about these actually more for the sacrificial activities. Indeed, with a lot of items we found in all these pits actually related to the sacrifice. So we talk about right now, it's more or less we can see this is the sacrificial pits. I think we cannot really 100% say it's yes or no. We believe that I maybe provide a new way of thinking. Talk about these are the sacrificial pits. So what's the whole process? So we look at actually it's really in a well-organized square, right? In the same direction. So like tiny formation of all these pits actually is a 45-degree to the east from north. So we are waiting to know more about all these pits. So we look at all these unearthed relics. So they share two features. First, related to the Yellow River civilization, Yangtze River civilization, and also to the Central Plain civilization. And all these actually for the ritual activities or representing sort of the spiritual pursuit. So we not only limit ourselves on the material level, so let's talk more about the spirit. So, talk about Shang Dynasty and also the Sanxingdui. Actually, we could see it's quite a peak time for the cultural exchange. So let's date back to 6,000 or even 8,000 years ago. So it's quite interesting to see that back then, actually all these kind of exchanges among different civilizations, between different places, actually people share more or less the same belief, especially the spiritual level. And later on, actually, we could see these help to lay a solid foundation for the unification of the Chinese civilization. And I also would like to say that you look at the pit, actually, they're heading to the similar direction. Actually, that's also the same direction of the Sanxing cities or the tribes, and also the same as the direction of their tombs. Another thing, surprisingly, actually, that's the same direction as the Sichuan Basin. So what that could tell us? I believe that's the Gushu people's wisdom. I believe something quite unique evidence we got. From my understanding, is the Gushu people's intelligence. And I believe this also could be a vivid products, the cultural products that we could share and also to cherish. So some people think we could not really understand. Of course, they have some difficulties to understand the ancient people, but with more and more findings, we believe that the communication route could be feasible and available and accessible between the people nowadays to the people in the ancient time, especially ancient Shu kingdom. I believe we should also focus more on the spiritual level. Of course, technology should play its part as well. So from day one of our live streaming, we talk about Sanxingdui is quite unique and let's say strange. But actually, look at it, it's not a stranger to us anymore. It's actually during the development history of Chinese civilization. It's a shining star in the whole night, that with other thousands of stars shining. We talk about the Sanxingdui, this location actually give us a lot of surprise. It's not just based on the relics we found and also the way of excavation. This time, archaeologists actually did their extreme in terms of collecting data. No single sand actually lost it or erased it. new ways, new findings. Actually, Sanxingdui not only reflect a Sanxingdui civilization or its own culture, from Sanxingdui to Xiahe, from Liangzhong to Yinxu, from Arlitou to Yangshao, from Yellow River to Yangtze River. Actually, by comparison, we knew more about ourselves, knew more about the culture, knew more about Chinese civilization. All these civilizations merged together. In the end, we have that synergy together to build a splendid Chinese civilization. Actually, these concluded different civilizations, different strands and strands of different civilization and culture. But actually, that also tell us the endless power and engine moving us forward. So we talk about other civilization, and the same for the other archaeological work. The Sanxingdui excavation work is still undergoing, and please stay tuned with CGTN New Media. Will bring you more. And the live streaming come to the end. Thank you very much, and thank you our special guest. Thank you all.